Hello, and welcome to an update video from the Distant Tourist Podcast. I'm Robert.
I'm Thomas.
And yeah, we are back after quite a bit of a break. We just graduated.
Yep.
Congratulations, Thomas.
Congratulations, Robert.
I figure we should celebrate with a bit of a drink. See if I can get this thing off on camera. There you go. There we go.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. All right, let's see. I don't want to shake up the mic too bad.
Just shake up the mic. It's fine. We've deserved what this is, so
See, I'll stop there for now. Let's give you some too.
please do.
But yeah, Thomas, how you feeling after graduating?
Indifferent. I thank you, sir.
Yep. Cheers.
Oh, cheers.
That's good.
Yeah. So for my thing, it does not feel like I've graduated at all.
Fair.
It feels like another summer break, I guess. Yes, everyone everyone has summer break, and it's just like gearing up for the next semester. But there's not going to be a next semester for us.
I mean, unless we decide to double down for masters, but that's up in the air.
Yeah, I am not going to double down for masters. I know what it would be like. My sister does she's doing a master's program right now, and I've seen during my time getting my bachelor's, I've seen her doing her master's, and I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want to do that.
Not for me.
It really is not for me. I kind of struggle a little bit with my writing skills. I can do an okay essay, but my writing skills aren't where I want it to be to enter into a master's program where you're doing a thesis, where you're doing all of that stuff. I have some fantastic ideas for thesis projects, but I can't really write. Where if I really wanted to hammer through with the master's, I could do something like I've kicked around the idea of it. So that's why I know these ideas like interviewing like people for that were in Japanese internment camps. Since I also have we both have Japanese minors, I could actually talk to them and ask them questions about their time there, translate it, and put it on record.
Yeah.
But I don't like writing.
The biggest hurdle, which is where people like me come in who study English just to be able to write good. Well, theoretically.
Yeah, I have great ideas, and I'm very much more the person that I would love to interview someone for that. That would be absolutely amazing. I would honestly make it a really big thing, but the thing is I can't articulate my words on paper well enough to give it justice, I feel like. It might be, people might say, you're too harsh on yourself, but it's just I wouldn't be able to articulate it very well, like to the point where I'd want it to be, especially with such a historic thing like the internment camps. It is extremely historic, and it's not really documented in history books that much. That's what I've noticed. To be honest, I am a I guess we should also mention about what our degrees are.
Yeah.
I am an Asian Studies major with a concentration in Japanese, and I got a minor in Japanese. Robert?
And I am an English major with a minor in Japanese, but also a certificate in TESOL. So I can teach English as a second language pretty okay. Is what that means.
Pretty okay.
I'd have to get the master's in TESOL, but that's another discussion entirely.
Yeah. So throughout my degree, I've learned a lot of things that they do not teach you in high school or like general schooling. They don't teach you like foot binding for Chinese culture.
Okay.
That's the whole thing of like for hundreds of years in China, they literally broke women's feet, wrapped them up in perfumed silk cloth, and that was it. The whole thing of trying to make sure you have like the smaller feet, the sexier you are, is essentially 500 years of people with foot fetish. It was, and there's even erotic novels about foot binding. As horrible as it is, I had to read things um, like people were turned on how a woman literally could not walk down the hallway.
I'm gonna be real. I wasn't expecting this direction when we started this.
Sorry, yeah. This is just one of many things that they don't teach you that I learned through my degree, um, which is thoroughly interesting. But
The tradition or the action?
no, all of the things that I didn't learn is
Oh,
interesting.
okay,
Not-
okay.
I don't. I really don't like that about China. Is the whole foot binding thing. I don't understand it. I don't like it. I don't like how they did it for so many years. It was literally. It wasn't until recently when the Communist Party took over did they ban foot binding. There are still people alive today that had experienced foot binding.
It sounds awful.
It is extremely awful. Yes, but taking a different side, trying to do all these things, I could, being an Asian studies major, I could try to get my master's in it, and I could do a project on that where I interview people with that had to experience that, where I talk to them about like what their family relations were, why their family went through it, how they felt through it, all these other things. I can come up with fantastic ideas and really interesting topics, but I can't articulate myself enough to make a thesis.
I mean, well, maybe it's one of those things that you come back to later down the line when you feel like you're ready. I mean, I know that my parents specifically, I think my mom went back to college, I want to say 8 years ago to get a master's. You know, what specifically, I don't remember, but, you know, the door's always open to go learn some more while you're at it. So, you know, it's always a route to take.
Especially now with, what's going on and everything like that. So
I mean, honestly, the way I look at it is even with all of the major issues that are going on right now, is if you have the time, now is just the time to be creative or to try something new. I mean, this podcast is basically testament to that idea. So yeah, if you want to go back to school, get a new skill, by all means, just go ahead and try. I mean, this podcast, if that's not an example, then I don't know what is.
I mean, there's a lot of stories about people doing it's like a pandemic learning thing or pandemic hobby where people are really discovering something that they want to do, or even doing things that they've always wanted to do, like even in a very basic level, people doing house renovations, things that they've wanted to do for a very long time, and now because of the pandemic they're doing it, because you're like, I think it's mostly you're forced to see it, where before you're out and about. Like even for us with college, we're out on campus.
Yeah.
And so we're not we're not home a lot of times.
I don't know about you, but I used to spend like 8 to 12 hours on campus per day. Like a lot of time. Like now, obviously not, but
I had work and club, so yeah, I was on there quite a bit. I definitely do miss it. I think a lot of people do miss the campus life. But it's just how things are. You got to kind of deal with it. But I think a lot of good has also come out of it. A lot of people have found new hobbies that they've always wanted to try, and because they're stuck at home, you might as well try something.
yeah, like I'm thinking about getting back into piano. Like
I've actually tried. I got a keyboard to get into piano.
how's that been going?
It's been going okay. Finals hit, and I literally stopped playing it completely because of finals.
I don't blame you. There's actually, I guess, to do a quick update, there's actually an episode that we haven't edited yet. Well, I haven't edited yet because of finals. So, that's one thing to look forward to after this little update here.
Yes. There's a lot of things that are still happening. It's just, it's crazy. It's just, we got ridiculously busy. For me personally, I had 3 Japanese classes and then 2 Asian studies classes.
So, yeah, you're really double booking it.
I was
Maybe triple.
I was essentially double down to the extreme of, okay, I had a massive Japanese project for I did like an independence thing, where I did a big presentation which I had to make a script for. For me, I can make presentations really easily if I can go up on a stage or I can go up in front of people and I can make a presentation real quick. And I usually come up with my stuff on the fly. That comes really easy for me. Where I come up, what I do is I put bullet points, which I guess this is the way you're supposed to do PowerPoint presentations.
Yes.
Which, if you didn't know, I highly recommend. If you make just like main points and then you just speak about them.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that.
Not putting paragraphs on the thing and just reading your slides.
It's a little dangerous if you do it that way.
Yeah.
I will say though, like, so when I was back in community college, I had this one semester where I had to take a speech taking class, and so like, you're supposed to do these flashcards and everything, and so I set up the flashcards the night before, but I hadn't like properly prepared my speech and everything, so I showed up to class like almost half an hour late because I was in the library finishing preparations, and then so the cards are supposed to help you prepare for it. I hadn't prepared at all, so I just looked at the cards and I lied through my teeth about statistics, which is horrible.
That is very horrible.
But
yeah.
the thing was, and I guess this, you could also take this as a tip I've learned from my time there: act confident. Confidence will like get you through basically anything. I acted confident as if I knew exactly what I was talking about, and the professor and everybody was so impressed. I lied about a lot of things, but I lied confidently, and nobody called me out. I'm not saying it's a good skill.
I was about to say, later on when you're actually talking to experts, they'd be like, "What do you mean?
I'm just
the statistics. Where did you find it?"
Well, obviously you got to pick a time and a place. If I'm going to like well, in this case, it would have been like a climate experts meeting. I wouldn't just start lying through my teeth. I'd basically be called out immediately.
Yeah, you would.
Yeah, no,
But it's cool. It's college.
Yeah, it's college. You got to get through a class, and sometimes you're just not prepared as much as you'd like to be. So you got to just ad lib sometimes. That's just all you can do.
The things we learn from college.
Honestly, I feel like the things you should really take from college, besides just the academic stuff, is like the character stuff that you got to know, like interacting with people and figuring out how you can fit in with, I guess, society in general, and I guess almost the social tools that you can use as in your own personality to achieve your goals. Obviously, I'm not saying you should like start cheating people or anything, but like, you know,
I think you do learn a lot about who you are during college. I know I had a little bit of a hard time through college. I know my first year, I am really happy of where I've gotten. I've graduated. I had straight B's. I've graduated with straight B's, which is essentially a 3.0.
Congratulations.
Which is huge, considering my very first year of college, I did not do well whatsoever. I essentially flunked and dropped all of my classes except for one, which was a Japanese class, which is why I ended up being what I am today. But you learn a lot through college, and just by starting, you change so much, like from the beginning point to the end. I mean, when I first started that first year, I was on academic probation because of that first year. And then now I'm graduated to Sac State with a 3.0.
That's the character growth we like to see around here.
Exactly. That's essentially like big character development right there.
I still agree with the belief that I think our failures teach us more than our successes do.
True.
I mean, you know, you got to sometimes stumble a bit to reach the top of the mountain or wherever you're trying to get.
Yes.
But, you know, I mean, now we've gotten to this point, and I figure, at least in my opinion, it's just like another step along the way. Like, I'm still just trying to figure out, like, well, right now for the summer, I'm just enjoying myself and trying a bunch of everything.
Same.
But, like, you know, once everything kind of settles, it's like time to start moving on the next step. I have, you know, a couple opportunities opened up, but, you know, it's all about just where I'm going to decide to land for a while until I get on to the next step.
True. I know that. Yeah, it's gonna be. We're definitely doing a lot of different things over the summer, especially considering our circumstances.
Yeah.
Speaking of, what are your plans for the next step or summer?
For now, on the summer, I just want to travel a bit. I'm, seeing
Good luck.
family. Yeah, really. I'm seeing family again, seeing old friends that I haven't seen in a long time again. Just kind of reconnecting with people. Maybe hoping that from there I kind of just start figuring out the next step of the path. I have opportunities to work in Sac State, which I'm still on the fence of whether I'm going to take or not. But like I still have other goals that I want to achieve beyond that, and maybe this is just the stepping stone. It's more like where do I decide to step for now before I get to the next step, and that's kind of where I'm at. But I think summer is really going to be, I guess, almost a recentering in a way.
Yes, I very much agree with that.
Yeah.
I do think after so long and you've graduated, I mean, some people have like jobs lined up, ready to go. They go from graduation straight into their next job, which is amazing.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Gen-
if that
generally,
is
it's
you,
good for you.
that
Yeah.
is honest to God amazing. But there's like people like us that's just been kind of like we weren't really able to because we both wanted to go to Japan. We both applied to like JET and other things that set you up to be in Japan, but because of the pandemic, unfortunately, a lot of it was cut back, and
It's gotten complicated.
yeah, it's gotten extremely complicated. So we are kind of forced to kind of sit there and go, okay, what are we going to do? And I know this has been a big question for me anyway, is I've graduated. I think this is also a big question for everyone that graduates is I've graduated, now what?
Yeah, I mean, you got like at some point you got to kind of decide like I think the best way I've heard it put is it's like maybe you know where the next step is, but you have to figure out the trajectory to get to the next step. And I think even just formulating that plan for yourself or being flexible enough that even if that trajectory doesn't work, that you can adapt around it is so important to just, moving to where you want to be. I I have an idea of where I want to be, but 5 years later I could be completely somewhere else
Yep.
and just decide that maybe that trajectory is better than the one I foresaw for myself. Life is really just kind of, I guess, almost rolling with the punches and picking where you can go safely or where seems beneficial to go.
Thinking of that, where would you like to kind of end up? If you were able to kind of do what you want, where would you like to, what kind of job would you like to have in the future? Maybe I'm just kind of curious about kind of like, we're both going to kind of relax for the summer.
Yeah.
I think we both agree that we're both going to kind of do our own thing during the summer. We're both very focused on kind of recentering, figuring out kind of like what it is. But is there something that you definitely like, oh, I definitely want to do this in the future?
I think I definitely want to be in some sort of teaching position or some mentor kind of role. I really just, I just, how do I put this? I feel like I found a lot of a new side of myself that I haven't seen before in teaching. One summer I had to, funny enough, teach somebody how to drive a bus in 2 weeks, which had some bumps,
As it would, yeah.
yeah, there were a couple of close calls, but at the end of the day when I found out that the person I was teaching had succeeded on their first try, I was just ecstatic for them because it was I succeeded in my role in helping them get to the next point because for whatever reason they were really excited to learn how to drive the bus. But to just get them there from that through all the bumps and the hurdles and their own personality that I had to work with, it was such an enriching experience. And after talking to people who have kind of done the same for me, it's why not give forward to the future as it is. I don't know if I would teach in America specifically because depending on where you get set up, you're really not given a lot of leeway, I guess the best way to put it. I definitely could try teaching in Japan for a little bit and use that TESOL training that I have to just, try something new. Teach English to people that are learning it as their second language and see what I can find there. Like, use an excuse to travel and maybe, I guess, discover another side of myself again. But what are you looking at? What's on your mind?
For me, I mean, we're both waiting to hear back from Jet. That's
True.
a big thing, because they said they'll let us know sometime between now and December.
If we're being put on the docket, yeah.
Yeah, if we're actually gonna be put in. But then I'm still curious about what do we do after that? Like, if I want to reapply for Jet, like I say, I don't get in, and I really do want to get into it because I know. We both know a lot of people that have gone through Jet and came out way better and have gotten way better jobs and just they've experienced Japan.
Yeah, and it was arguably the motivation for us to even try.
Yes. A lot of people that I look up to, one of our professors, he went through Jet. And I kind of wanted to go through Jet as well. So I'm kind of like, do I reapply? And if I do want to reapply, do I do it while I'm still waiting to hear back from them, since I technically kind of passed, but not really. So there's that whole thing. There's other programs that might get me into Japan. I know my big thing is I just want to experience Japan in some capacity. I was hoping to live there for a couple years, so then my language skills get way better. So I literally surround myself with the language, study the language, and then I could also come back and take the JLPT, which is the, for people that don't know. Sorry. For people that don't know, the JLPT is Japanese Language Proficiency Test. And it has multiple different levels, but essentially it's a test to see how good you are at the language. That's really it.
Yeah.
The higher the level, the better job you can get. Like I was looking online earlier this week about jobs, and I could get a job in Washington as being like a liaison for Nintendo, for them in a Japanese company or the main hub in Japan. But I would have to have an N1 JLPT test pass. So
there's definitely a hurdle to get past to get there.
yes, right now as we both are having a Japanese minor, we're probably about N3.
Yeah.
I would say N3 would be a good guesstimate about where we are. A good bit of studying would probably maybe put us at N2 if we get lucky on some questions and really study.
Yeah.
N1 includes like an extra 1,500 kanji. It is like you know the language better than people that are in Japan.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I'd say it that way. I'd say it's about you're reaching the on par level.
I think N1 is like complete mastery of Japanese.
Right, like as if you finished like.
Because I've heard people like I've talked to people that have taken the test that are also from Japan, and they said that they barely passed N1 with studying. They could pass N2 with just not even trying. But I guess a way I kind of compare it is like it's like speaking English and going and getting an English degree like you. Sure, I can speak it well. I could take some English tests and pass things, but there's other very minute things that I don't know about English.
Oh yeah, no, like I remember my second year at Sac State, I had like that was when I decided to do TESOL, and the first semester was like linguistics. When all of a sudden, like, linguistics seems like such I don't want to say simple, but like self-explanatory study might be the best way to put it.
It's a study of languages,
right?
Yeah.
And like I only took like one cursory course for the certificate, but like the amount of stuff I felt like I learned in just that one semester was insane. Like all of a sudden I was like recontextualizing the very language I was speaking. It caused me to recontextualize Japanese that I was learning at the time, and it was like really freaking. Well, it was really freaking cool. Like I mean, it's still there are still lessons that I take when I look at other languages, but like the other thing that like really was the bane of my existence for a semester was like sentence structuring, where you had to like So like, everybody knows like basic
Yeah.
grammar. Like you can speak the language. Obviously, we're having this conversation. But then like you're told, here's a paper. I want you to show me each individual part of a sentence. And all of a sudden, it gets infinitely more complicated.
Yep.
And I just remember for a semester, I just spent the whole semester just writing out like complex diagrams that look like chemistry equations just to show what an English sentence looks like. So there's a lot of nuance, like in any language, obviously, that I had to learn about in English, which was a trip to say the least.
Oh yeah, I've already I've noticed just by studying Japanese just how much I didn't know about English. Like there's like, oh yeah, this means this in English, and I'm like, wait, what is that? Like, oh yeah, that's right, that's what these words are. That's what this means, and I think that's kind of like when I think about the JLPT, that's kind of how I compare it. Where N2 is like, native English speakers can pass the test, and then N1 is like you got a degree in it, or at least you know a lot more than your basic stuff.
I know there's some schools that give you a bachelor's in Japanese, and I wonder if it would get you to N1.
So actually, funny you say that, but my main reason for picking Japanese, the reason why I applied for Sac State was because when I was applying, I saw that it had bachelor's in Japanese. And it wasn't until I looked at that later on did it say that degree was no longer a bachelor's. That the bachelor system had they've completely canceled it, and it's only a minor, and that's why I ended up going into Asian studies instead. But yeah, going into Sac State, I was very much like, I want Japanese. I actually, going into Sac State, I wanted to double major. I wanted to double major in Spanish and Japanese. Because going into Sac State, my Spanish level was like way higher than my Japanese level. I had been surrounded by people that spoke Spanish. I had even at one point taught a ESL class, being a teacher's assistant, in Spanish. Like I was really high level in Spanish, but my Japanese kind of took a back burner, so I kind of wanted to keep up on my Spanish and then go further into Japanese. But then I took a bunch of Asian studies classes that first semester, and I just completely dropped the idea of doing Spanish.
And that's just kind of how the way it bounces at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was just kind of like there's so much work that goes into Japanese, and then also all the Asian studies major stuff. And I mean, technically saying, yes, I could have gotten a Spanish major. I could have gone through and done it. But I would have been taking way too many units to the point where I couldn't have handled it. And I couldn't have done a lot of the things that I wanted to do. Also, I had to work on campus, and I wanted to go to club. So, yeah, already like all those other things.
You're already stretching yourself thin at that point.
Yeah, essentially. So that's why I ended up dropping it. But yeah, I don't really regret it too much. I mean, of course, it'd be fantastic to be fluent in even like another language. And even as it stands now, if I listen to the language, I can understand quite a bit. But trying to speak it,
it's difficult.
Yeah, it's difficult coming up with sentences on your own.
Just be a polyglot, bro. Just sorry for those who don't know. That's like a person that speaks a bunch of languages, which I've thought about being, but like, for what reason? Like,
when I was going into Sac State, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be someone that was like, I know like all of these different languages. Haha!
Congratulations, you've reached Rosetta Stone.
Yeah, but yeah, that didn't happen.
Didn't pan out.
No, but I'm very, very happy that I got the Asian Studies major. I thoroughly love the Asian Studies, like the whole program of Sac State in general. Everyone in it is amazing people that really know their stuff, and they're really passionate about Asia. Which I guess it's rubbed off on me, because going into it, I was like, I'm only here for Japan. I'm only here to learn Japanese and focus on Japanese major stuff. And then I took like a cultural history class. That's where I learned about foot binding, and that's when we talked about India, about the sutras and other things like that. And that's when we learned about Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucianism, other isms. It was absolutely fascinating, I found. So definitely during my time of the degree, it changed my whole perspective of I only want to learn about Japan to I want to learn about Asia in general. It is absolutely fantastic, like amazing. Like even as it is now, sure, I want to be like an English teacher in Japan, or I want to go to Japan and live there for like a year or two. But now after I've gotten my degree, I'm very much open to going anywhere in Asia, whether that would be Korea, even China. There's things that I can, if I get a ESL certificate, I could maybe find a program that makes me an English teacher wherever, which I am very much into now and very much open about, because Asia in general is very, very interesting. I found Chinese art to be extremely interesting. I still find Japanese Heian period to be extremely interesting. Still, like there's South Korea. I think that'd be amazing to look into how it's going right now, because they're trying to do a bunch of globalization and other things that I learned throughout my thing.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you got like your fingers kind of in a lot of different pots at the same time.
It's very much of as I am right now, I could see me being a lot of different things. But one thing is for sure, I definitely want to at least travel somewhere.
Whenever the world allows that.
Yeah, the thing is right now we can't really do that.
It's the drawback to the
pandemic.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I'd rather people stay healthy, but
that is the thing. I mean, now that we're vaccinated and that, I mean, here in California, June 15th, we're supposed to be opening up again.
Oh God, is it that soon?
Yeah, June 15th. We're supposed to be like no more social distancing, and you don't have to wear masks anymore.
I can touch you.
Yeah, it's just like,
sorry.
It's very much opening back up. Except the thing is like other places like Japan, they literally haven't had any vaccines.
I mean, I think at the time of this recording, I think it's about like only 5% of the population's been vaccinated.
It's because they don't have vaccines. So in Japan, they've been offered the Chinese vaccine.
Oh, there.
However, they want the American vaccine. So they are effectively waiting to get the American vaccine. However, America is very much focused on us, their own people.
Right.
So they're not sending nearly as much vaccines over to Japan. So that is where they're at right now. That's why it is taking so long for them to vaccinate, is because they literally don't have vaccines to get it.
You want some more?
So, yeah.
All right. A second.
More
Excuse us as we get more champagne.
Just
kind of basking in this conversation.
Yeah.
How much do we have left?
Not that much.
Let's do.
But yeah, I think that is what's going on with the whole Japan thing. Also, a lot of Japanese people are changing that, like they don't want the Olympics to happen. I know that is a major thing right now, is the Olympics in Japan.
I think I read a report saying like 80% of the population's against it or
It
something.
is a majority of it's safe to say a majority of the Japanese population are against having the Olympics, which I really don't blame them. I mean, if you think about how much money people put out for the Olympics, and then also for the pandemic, people are just gonna go, and it's just gonna create even more problems probably for Japan more than other countries. Um, so yeah, that is where they're at right now. They're just kind of waiting for vaccines, trying to figure out what to do about the whole Olympic thing. And then that's just kind of messing up things for people that want to go over there like us.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's kind of what the deal is with Asia right now, is that they're still, I think South Korea is a way better. North Korea completely closed themselves off at the very beginning. So they didn't have really any cases whatsoever.
Was it New Zealand that like closed themselves off completely and like I think only a couple months after the pandemic started, they were like, "Oh, we're good now."
Yeah,
Something like that.
that North Korea was almost the same, where they shut it off because they couldn't. Like, if you're North Korea, you don't want to have that pandemic in there. It would have completely devastated North Korea.
Yeah.
And it also would have had them rely more on stuff, which is a whole nother thing. I took a whole class on North Korea.
Yeah. Which is like another can of worms we
Oh, yeah.
probably should avoid for now.
Yes. So, yeah, that's kind of where we are right now. I want to go somewhere into Asia. I know that I definitely want to do something that kind of helps people, whether that is teaching or doing anything like that. I thought about maybe working at a college, being some sort of advisor or something like that, because I know I want to help people. I just really want to help people, and if I go that way with a counselor, I can help people kind of figure out what it is they want to do, what kind of path do they want to take, and then help them achieve that path.
Yeah.
There. That's been a really big thing, is just kind of helping people, I guess.
And I think that's very, I think it's very noble at its own core, like, obviously. But I guess kind of to roll back, okay, let's bring hypotheticals into this.
Okay.
Travel anywhere in the United States right now, where would you go?
In the U.S.?
U.S., since we can't really travel anywhere else.
I don't know. The thing is, for me personally, I've not really traveled the U.S. I've been out of the country, like I've been to England, and I've traveled many places across England.
But you haven't been out of California?
I've been out of California to Oregon, but I haven't been into Washington. I've been in Nevada, but essentially my reach is Oregon, California, and Nevada. That's been as far as I've kind of gone.
Wow.
Exactly. And so I thought about maybe over the summer, maybe expanding that. I definitely want to see the Grand Canyon.
Oh, it's very nice. It's very nice, I can say for sure.
Very grand.
Very grand, very canyon.
I wanted to see something on the East Coast, just so I can see, like, because a lot of people compare United States with East Coast and West Coast.
I'd argue they're completely different cultures to some degree.
And so I kind of wanted to experience that, about what is the different cultures. There is one place in California I would never go to. That is Florida. I'm sorry, people of Florida.
I've been there just to go to Disney World, and this isn't to say anything specifically about Floridian people. I don't know if that's the word for it.
Well, a lot of people hear things like, Florida man did this today.
That's because of a weird law they have, but that's another discussion. But yeah, no, like the one time I went to Florida for Disney World was the one time I didn't bring like rain gear, and it rained all week. Like, this is around New Year's, and I was just miserable for a week, like while at Disney World.
Well, I mean, that's kind of your own fault.
No,
you can't blame Florida for that.
I'm not saying I'm going to. I'm just gonna say, like, already my preconceptions now are just tainted with my own bad experience. I mean, would I try going back? Maybe.
One thing I don't like is that Tornado Alley.
Is there a Tornado Alley? I don't actually know. I don't pay attention to Florida.
It's like mid-east countries. There's like a very specific one. I can't remember all the states off the top of my head. But that's essentially where tornado season hits, and that's usually where you get a lot of tornadoes. I personally cannot. I wouldn't be able to live somewhere like that, just because I'd be terrified of
No, thank
tornadoes.
you. I'm good.
Um,
Also, let's get this very clear. We've been drinking a bit at this point, so we're not going to be completely correct with half of our statements.
well, there is Tornado Alley.
No, there is Tornado
I'll have
Alley,
you
but
know, sir.
I'm not saying
This is a correct term that has been used.
yes, but I'm not going to specify on the we don't know where the location is.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
Exactly.
What all those things are. But I mean, even if I was sober, I wouldn't be able to tell.
I gave you an out, and you just like outed yourself.
I am a product of the American.
The American school system.
Yeah, that's what I am. So,
Wow.
hey man, like, yeah, I have learned a lot. I think I've learned a lot more through college than really the very basic school systems. And I
Oh,
noticed that
snap! School system. Are you going to take that stand and sitting down?
I think there's a lot of things that they leave out.
I mean, you could say in the past year, if a lot of that has come to light.
But also like a lot of people don't know about the Exclusion Act.
On a sober day, I could tell you what that is, but not on a not. On
It
a
is
drinking day.
where the United States literally for, I think it was like 60 years, I believe, literally made it so that Chinese people weren't humans.
Oh,
essentially, in
okay, yeah,
America.
yeah, okay, yeah.
They didn't have any citizenship and they were treated horribly. Also, they built the railroad system, which was even worse, like conditions.
But that's a whole nother conversation we could go into.
I can literally talk for hours about the things from that they teach you in Asian studies that people leave out in the history books. Because I think people know that, like, there's they use Chinese people to build the railroad system. I'm pretty sure that's like a paragraph in the history books, but that's about it. They don't go into like the Exclusion Act, what it is, why there's Chinatown in different areas, or there's Japantown in different areas, why that's happening.
I feel that as though like there's a lot of things that, like the American school system kind of quickly glances over.
Yep.
And like, we could say like, oh, well, you have the entire like history of human society at the tip of your fingers, but the thing is like you have to like at least know what you're searching for at least, and half the time like in the American school system you wouldn't even know that that's like the phrase or the subject to
Well, I think they
search
just
for.
teach you general stuff and then hoping that you will flesh out more once you hit college. It's the whole thing of you'll learn this later on in college, and then college says, you didn't learn this in high school.
Yeah, they made me take algebra twice. That was fun.
I think that's the whole thing of like, it's like almost like a gap where they're expecting you to find out through a different way. Now it might be a little bit easier because there's online stuff where you're a lot more exposed to more information.
I mean, I'd argue it's a dangerous assumption in the first place.
It is, yeah, very much so. So
Especially, well, that's I'm not going to get in that conversation right now, but like, there's a lot put onto us, and I'd argue that in the I guess fast-paced world we live in now, that's very difficult. Well, not right now, but like at least it was difficult to find the time to just stop and take a look into those kinds of things. I mean,
well, I think growing up, a lot of the stuff, like when we were, this is a very older thing to say.
oh boy,
when
you're
we
gonna
were-
date us real hard.
When we were kids, internet was just being introduced.
Why'd you say that?
So you wouldn't be able to just go on your phone real quick and look up.
Yes, you guys remember the VHS? I'll bet a bunch of you don't.
So yeah.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that. I really appreciate that one.
Let that sink in for you.
Oh,
When we were kids, we didn't have internet.
oh, we have any more champagne? I'm gonna need to drink that one off. Oh, oh. Yes,
So,
we lived in the before times when there wasn't a Google.
Yeah, those were dark times. I mean, especially now everything's online. So
I could learn a complete different skill on through the internet now.
I think
Well,
personally,
How well is dependent, but
I don't know. I think so we've been on online learning for a year now.
about a year and a half.
Yeah, from college.
Yeah.
I think I have learned less than if I would have learned in person. Personally, just because even if you're like you have your computer out. So what I did is I have a standing desk and my laptop, and I put myself in a completely different room.
Yeah.
For learning classes. That's what I did. Well, I just completely isolated myself. So it's just me, my computer, that's it. However, it still is hard to understand things online. There still is distractions, even if you are, even if you're still standing still, unless you find the topic to be riveting, you're gonna get distracted, and there's not too much that teachers can do. Where before you're up on a board, you write stuff on a whiteboard, and then you can make connections of okay, here's this. You could ask the class, what's this? I found a lot of my classes weren't even showing their screens. So you can't even see other people in the class. It's like for a couple of my classes, I was literally the only person with their screen on, like with their camera on.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree that that's definitely a symptom, but I'd argue that there's like an even simpler problem where like, like the fact that you physically went to school and that you showed up to the class, like there's almost like a sort of commitment to that. The fact that you even like bothered,
you're there.
Like you're there. At that point, you're locked in because it's like I took the time to get there. I might as well use the time that I have now, like with this professor giving this lecture, because it's like you've already given the time commitment.
Well, I also feel it's like you're in person. You're looking at the person you are committing your time to. You are there in person, and you're surrounded with other people that you can see.
I mean, they say it's harder to lie to people when it's face to face as opposed to when you're like behind a wall.
Yeah, and I think a lot of classes now that I've experienced that are considered general ed for Sac State, everyone has their screen off, so you can be doing anything. And I feel like a lot of people are like, "Oh, I can just have my screen off during class, and I can do my own thing. I can play video games. Teacher's not going to know about that."
And I won't lie, I definitely did that.
I can watch YouTube videos, which I've literally heard people when they forget to mute themselves, literally watching like the news or something like that. So like it gives leeway to distractions, and so a lot of people that are behind the screen aren't actually there paying attention, and I feel like there's times where online learning is fantastic. Like I like being able to just get up, go over to my computer, and I'm in class ready to go.
Right, it's fast.
Exactly, it's really fast. You don't have to drive to school,
which sometimes the traffic would be awful.
And then you have to deal with traffic. You'd have to deal with other people as well. Maybe there's people you don't like there. Maybe there's people that you're having conflicts with. So I could see online class being a fantastic thing for that, to counteract that. However, I feel like teachers kind of get disheartened by having cameras completely off. I've definitely noticed that in a lot of my college classes, where if I'm like one of 3 people that have their cameras on, they are very much disheartened. They don't want to teach.
I mean, it's like talking to a wall. Like you don't get any visual feedback that people are, picking up on what you're trying to teach them. Right? Exactly,
and that's what the biggest thing that I've talked to my professors about it who have been dealing with that. And I was like, hey, how have you been dealing with it? Because I've been dealing with it fine. I mean, we have tests are easier because it's online tests.
And a lot of the curriculums have had to have been adjusted for it.
Yeah, and most of those are really, really easy.
Right.
Um, but what about the teachers? How are they dealing with it? There's teachers that love it because all they have to do is just throw some stuff online. There's some classes that they've recorded themselves speaking, like doing a lecture,
which I think is also clever. But
I think it's fantastic. And then they just recycle that video for the next semester.
Yeah.
And so they literally they do less work by doing the same, by giving the same sustenance for the class, which I think that's fantastic. However, there's a lot of ones that are in person that are like, I ask the class something, no one answers.
It's like talking to our wall back here.
Yeah, you're just sat there monologuing.
Yes, good job, class. You did it.
It's just kind of like, and then maybe someone might use the chat, but a lot of the time, a lot of people don't. It's just literally like the person would say something, and it'd be up to maybe two people that have their screens on.
The two smart kids.
Yeah, to say something. And it still is hard.
It's going to be one of those things where, I mean, like, I don't know where we're going to see the effects long term, but, like, it's one of those things where, like, we've definitely had to adapt. It's going to be, I think, at least another year before we see things fully return to, like,
it won't
even if it, like, in some fashion of normal. Like, I mean, we're starting to see it, but not quite, like, as it was before, and I don't know if we'll ever get to that kind of normal again.
Yes,
at least not anytime soon.
Well, what I found really interesting, especially when COVID first started, was my professor pointed out, now there's going to be a pre-COVID era and a post-COVID era.
Right.
And the world will never be the same after COVID.
Not completely, no.
It will never be the same. Even jobs are now focusing more on online at home, which I find thoroughly interesting because before COVID had hit, I did a lot of research into it, and a lot of businesses, like a lot of research was done on it.
Yeah.
And it was shown that people were more efficient, happier, and harder working when they are at home and they are working from home. And when presented with this data to companies have just said that, well, this data is fantastic and we would love to do it. However, we don't have the means to do it. We can't just...
Which turned out to be a lie, but
Which now they are literally forced to do it. And I think a lot of schools are also going to be going just online. I think Sac State is now going to have a bigger push towards online instead of in person.
But I think there's going to be a pushback to some degree, because at least I know for me that I would have... How do I put it? I would have felt like I had learned more effectively in person. Like,
I agree, 100%. Yeah.
So, I mean, do I agree that the online portion will definitely be more of a part of the daily life? Yeah, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised if one class the professor just records all of their lectures, and if you don't show up, you can still access them. Now, I think at that point there are other questions to be asked, but the idea is still the same, where it's like, as long as you do the work, you deserve to get the credit for the class. Mm-hmm. But like, do I agree or do I believe things will turn back to? No, we've already gone too long with things different, and some people have opinions and so on and so forth. But like, the rhythm, I guess you could argue that things happened has definitely changed already, and I don't know if people are willing to just change that rhythm again to go back to something that was maybe not specifically working for them, when at least during COVID it was more to their wheelhouse. They didn't have to like drive 40 minutes in traffic to go to an office that they didn't like to accomplish less work.
Well, I know even companies are literally cutting back on that on purpose. Like, I think my sister's job, they've literally bought a new building to have like their offices at, but it's way smaller, and you're technically sharing a office. So you're going in like once or twice a week at most. And so you'd be like, then they just split things up. So, okay, this many people are going to be on this days, and then we'll rotate. So Freddie will have Monday, Wednesday, and then Kathy will have Tuesday, Thursday, and then we'll have Bobby in on Friday. You know, it's kind of like they split things up and make it so more cost effective while still having this at-home work environment. I think a lot of things could probably go towards a mixture. I think a lot of people are kind of leaning a bit more towards mixing online and in person.
I don't believe we're still yet at the point that we can go full online, but I could definitely see the mixture happening first.
Well, I know that I think Sac State, they let the professors choose whether they want to be online or in person.
Oh,
And when the students had signed up for classes, they had to look to see if it was online or in person, because they might sign up for a class that is in person and then immediately have like an online class. Which I find kind of difficult, because if you have an online class right before you have an in-person class, that means you have to drive in person. You have to drive on campus to take the online class, so then you're not late for the in-person class.
Yeah.
If you have like one right after the other. So I think it's interesting, but at the same time, like, I think some students are going to hate it because they're going to be forced to go on campus for one class that they have to take for their degree.
I mean, of course, there's going to be the required class where, like, you got to do an engineering where you got to do labs to, like, see reactions and stuff like that. So that's...
Yeah.
That kind of thing, I doubt would ever go away, because you'll always need people who understand from looking at...
You'll always have to have someone in person doing experiments and doing stuff for that class.
Because that's always going to be a requirement. But, I mean, you know, we're now living in a time where the chips are set in a certain way, and we'll have to see how they get picked up. And, I mean, you know, even the jobs we could take could be vastly different from how we envisioned.
But I feel like that also is very much... That can happen in life anyway. Once you graduate, you can end up somewhere completely different than what you're expecting.
I mean, of course, and I think that's kind of like ended up being the big theme of this jumble of a mess of a conversation. But I mean, you know, like obviously the world's changing, we're changing. Like, you know, nothing ever stays completely static.
Nope.
But I mean, I feel like that's kind of like the perfect theme for the ending of this. And I think kind of on that note, I think we should probably start wrapping up. I think we've been going for about an hour on this crazy train of a conversation.
Yeah. We will end this here.
Yeah. We got some episodes coming up again. We just kind of thought we'd celebrate our graduation on this one.
This was really much a catch-up, celebrate a very informal episode where we just kind of talk about what's kind of going on right now in I guess in the world and both in our lives.
It turned out that way.
Yeah.
It was not really planned to be that way.
But yeah, we wanted to celebrate. We're both we've reached another end of another chapter. Excited to start the next one. But we're still going to be doing the podcast. We have a couple episodes we're going to be making to go out to you guys.
Just for clarity, the next one will be recorded before, will have been recorded before this video. So you'll see us in a completely different, our usual state of being. And then after that, you'll see us.
You'll see us super tired and exhausted. And then it'll be the new us smiling.
Yeah, just like, yeah, we're back. No responsibilities right now.
Exactly. So yes, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I really do appreciate it. If you guys wanted to reach out to any of the socials, that would be extremely cool. At distant_Taurus, at distant_Taurus.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then, yeah, if you guys wanted to, if you're watching it on YouTube, you can drop a subscribe there. That'd be really cool. You'll know exactly when we submit the new episodes.
I think you can smash that like button, but I don't know about that.
I wouldn't recommend smashing it. Maybe just click it. You might break your monitor if you do that. So yeah, thank you so much. This is where we'll end it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching.